on the NRM Central Executive Committee, a testament to his leadership skills and trust he has earned through his peers. Currently, he oversees the operation of resident district commissioners in the Office of the President, a crucial role that requires him to coordinate and manage the activities of RDCs across the country. He is an accomplished academic, holding a master's degree in human rights from Makerere University, a doctorate in education, administration and management from British American University, Florida, in the United States of America. He is also the Vice President of the British American University Management Council, a position that underscores his expertise in education administration and management. Dr. James Tweheyo will be on the panel as Spotlight UG delves into assessing the NRM's progress in implementing its 2021-2026 Manifesto on Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 10 p.m. on NBC.
Thank you very much. Dr. A, very good to see you. I must protest on behalf of all the OBs of Mbarara High School as to why that school was missed out from your profile, and yet we claim you as one of our OBs.
Incidentally, I'm one of them. I had all my formative 4 years, from senior 1 to senior 4, living in Oxford, in senior 1S up to 4S, until I transited to go to Ntare School. Incidentally, I didn't go back to teach there. But I love my school. So recently, I even went there to rehabilitate Oxford, where I stayed for 4 years.
Timothy, Dr. Tweheyo defected to Ntare from Mbarara High School. We forgive him for that.
We don't use sports analogies. So.
I love my schools. I've been in all, including those I taught in. I didn't only teach in Ntare. I taught in Kabalega. I taught in Nyakayojo. I taught in Chinoni Girls. So I moved on until today.
And it's an honor for us to have you with us.
Happy to be around. And good evening, viewers and listeners, wherever you are.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Let's meet our next panelist.
Willis Bashaasha is a distinguished public servant who has served the country of Uganda in both political and civil service. He is currently the director of the Manifesto Implementation Unit at the Office of the President, a position he was appointed to on July 5th, 2016. Prior to the current position, Bashaasha served as the LC5 chairman for Bushenyi District Local Government from 2011 to 2016, representing the NRM party. He also worked as a customs specialist at the Uganda Revenue Authority for 18 years, where he gained valuable experience in revenue collection and management. Apart from his political and civil service, Bashaasha is actively involved in community service. He is currently the head of laity for the Western Ankole Diocese, a position that reflects his commitment to serving his local community. Bashaasha will be on the panel as Spotlight UG delves into assessing the NRM's progress in implementing its 2021-2026 Manifesto on Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 10 p.m. on NBS TV. Join the conversation online now.
Shasha, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I think one of the things I would urge you to do is write a book. The stories we shared before we came here, I would like to read them, or my children would like to read them. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening to you and good evening, viewers. I don't know whether you would be willing to give a forward.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's meet our final guest for the evening tonight.
Baryomunsi, the Minister for ICT and National Guidance in the Cabinet of Uganda, is a Ugandan politician, public health specialist, and physician who has dedicated his career to serving his country. Baryomunsi began his political journey as a high school student, where he was elected as the Minister for Education. He later attended Makerere University, where he served in various leadership positions, including Finance Secretary for the Federation of African Medical Students Association and Secretary for Finance for Makerere University Medical Students Association. Baryomunsi's commitment to public service led him to turn down a United Nations Population Fund HIV/AIDS advisor role for Harare in 2005 so that he could run for the Ugandan parliamentary election in 2006. He was elected as the NRM political party candidate for the Kingezi County East constituency in Kanungu district, and during his tenure in parliament he served on several committees, including the Social Services Committee, Health and HIV/AIDS departments, committees. Dr. Baryomunsi will be on the panel as Spotlight UG delves into assessing the NRM's progress in implementing its 2021-2026 manifesto on May 8th, 2023 at 10 p.m. on NBS TV. Join the conversation online by #SpotlightUG.
Very good evening to you, Dr. or Dr. Squared, as we like to call you. It's always a pleasure to have you with us in the room.
Thank you very much. I'm also happy to be here on the spotlight.
One of the things that I like about you is that you are not one to shy away from anything, and so I've been told to ask you if it is part of NRM's manifesto not to involve women in discussions like this. There's five bulls, and so maybe you want to defend why we have no women with us tonight?
You are the ones who invited us. So why did you invite a male panel? Definitely every Ugandan knows that the NRM has been at the forefront of pushing for women empowerment and gender equality. So but the blame goes to you. You are the one who constituted the panel, but definitely NRM supports the issue of women empowerment.
We will definitely take that blame. It's just a coincidence that it so happened that there were only women
it's just
tonight.
A coincidence. Yes.
Yeah, Mildred actually is supposed to be here tonight, but she couldn't make it because she was a bit unwell, so I had to sit in for her. This week we did carry a story on the NRM manifesto and what has been going on over the last 2 years. As we start our discussion tonight with our three very special guests, let's take a look at what we found out this week.
The mantle of securing the future of Uganda is so great a task for one to play best on. And as a matter of fact, the 2021-2026 NRM Manifesto has come to the middle age of its implementation. With its slogan, Securing Your Future, Ugandans gave President Yoweri Museveni the mandate based on the party's glittering manifesto that saw NRM win majority seats at all levels. In Teso sub-region, the local leaders are raising concern on the dark side of this manifesto, saying it's yet to be fulfilled.
There are some members of parliament who are claiming that they are the ones who are owning all these government projects which have always brought to our councils or to our local councils, which is a very big challenge.
The issue of cattle compensation, it is really eating into the marrow of the people. And I'm quite certain if the cows were actually compensated, it would change the thinking of the people. Everybody would think NRM now.
These issues were raised mainly by the LC3 chairpersons and the NRM sub-county chairpersons from the 10 districts of Teso during a consultative forum chaired by the NRM Deputy Secretary General, Rose Namayanja. Local Teso are concerned about the unfulfilled pledges, which they say is killing public trust.
The challenge that I see is the issue of corruption. I don't want to hide that one. And this is what has made NRM not to fulfill. Because of course this manifesto is supposed to be implemented through money.
The most important thing that people are asking about is about the tarmac road. From Kumi, Moras, Serere to Kagwara.
We need to go back to ensure that we build big dams at near the source of where that water comes. We should have big dams like the one the First Lady did in Karamoja, the Kubebe Dam.
However, the State Minister for Test Affairs, Dr. Clement Ongalo Bote, together with the NRM Deputy Secretary General, Rose Namayanja, insists that the NRM will achieve its manifesto through the Parish development model.
We must pile more pledges on him. And being a leader, he will say, okay, I will look into that, I will look into that, and it becomes a pledge. It is a problem from us, the people, who are ever, when the president comes to a region, people think it's only that region which he governs, there's no other region.
So it was a great interaction looking at where the commitments that the party made and where we are, and also sharing information with them, but most importantly imploring them to monitor service delivery.
Benson Ongom.
It's only fair to start with you, Director Bashaasha, to be able to understand. The 5 pillars that this manifesto stands on between 2021 and 2026 are basically creating jobs and wealth, delivering on education and wealth, ensuring justice and equality, 4, protecting life and property, and finally, achieving economic and political integration. Why should Ugandans, or why should we be celebrating this Manifesto Week?
Thank you very much. Once again, good evening, viewers. 12th of May happens to be the day when the president was sworn in. It's a constitutional date as to when the president is sworn in. So, celebrating this, we are not in the form of fanfare, but the government is coming to say, let's account to the citizens on how far we have gone on this journey. So, the need to celebrate is very, very important as part of the government's effort to account, but I think it is also a good governance practice for governments to keep their citizens informed on what probably is going on within their lives, and also how we have been able to deliver on the service delivery agenda. So we are happy that we are coming out. This is an initiative that is a proactive initiative from the Manifesto Implementation Unit, Office of the President, to see how can we celebrate this way of swearing in of our president. We are not into fanfare. We are only coming to say this is how far we have gone on the journey of the contracts that we made with the people of Uganda.
Yeah, and speaking of these contracts, Honorable baryomunsi, how well do you think you are fulfilling the terms of this mandate so far? So it's 2 years in as we speak, and before long we'll be getting into the new cycle for the next election. How well do you think we have done at the moment so far with delivery of the manifesto for 21 to 26?
Went to the polls 2 years ago, and once again, NRM, and NRM won resoundingly from the level of president. And then we formed the government. It was on the basis of the manifesto, which is basically a social contract to lead the country in 5 years. For you and the viewers, in the last 2 years, we have been securing the future of Ugandans.
We seem to be having a small problem with your microphone. As we fix that, maybe let me come to you, Dr. Tweheyo, in the interim, before we come back to Dr. baryomunsi. In terms of what you do as one of the SEC party members and where we are with the manifesto implementation, again, if you're to give yourself a score, and depending on who you ask and where you look, people usually think of government in maybe a particular way. If you're to give yourself a score, you being a school teacher, how well would you grade yourself in terms of the last 2 years?
I would call it steady progress. Yes, steady progress, because 5 years is like running a cycle in the pitch. And when you're running that cycle, you have the beginning and you have the finishing point. And if you are to calculate in terms of time and in terms of the speed at which you are moving, then you can easily tell that the journey you have covered and the progress you have made, you are progressing either well or poorly. And I can tell you without doubt, we are progressing well. Why should I say so? When we plan to effect some few programs, for example, when you talk of industrialization, when you talk of constructing a number of classrooms, when you talk of constructing health centers or upgrading health centers, when we talk of working on roads, a number of kilometers of roads, say in Kampala or in the rest of the country, then you can easily tell that if you are to construct 3,000 kilometers of roads, if it takes 5 years constructing the 3,000 kilometers, and in only 1 year, we have constructed over, I think, 1,000 kilometers. It means we are doing very well. And I can tell you, we are doing very well.
The people in Kampala might have a thing or two to say about that. I don't know where you passed, but you might have heard of the pothole exhibition. So if a person is listening to you say you're doing very well,
yes,
and yet every day they're having to go through potholes that these days seem to swallow trucks,
yes,
they might disagree with you a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, in a way, yes. But, you know, this pothole exhibition is actually a very good campaign. We support it because it brings awareness to everybody that, yes, at one point, the government made these roads, and now they're being damaged and need repairs. But then it shouldn't divert us from the attention of the new roads, new tarmacs, or those which have been either reconstructed or rehabilitated in the country. If you move around Kampala, yes, there are some areas really which are horrible. It is true, we should accept that. And they need reconstruction, they need repairing. But then there are also new roads. I think you remember, those of you who have been here, the next media, for example, here, you know how the road was from the junction of Ntinda up to here. Those who have lived in Gaba, incidentally, my wife comes from Gaba, how we used to move there. But now, the major problem is on one road, but then there is even a new road that goes express to Entebbe. Was it there? That's the first question. There are also these other roads that cross over. You are going to Gaba. If you fail to pass through the potholes, then you successfully manage to brave the jam, you can pass the other upper end, and you get through to all the other lower ends through Tamax junctions. Even by the way, from Kansanga, you move from Kansanga, cross over from Chiwewe's church, move. Was that road there? How was it? So let's not be blinded by the potholes that are there. True, we must accept. By the way, even me and you, we have our expiry time. And when that time expires, we are either going to be repaired or reconstructed as a road, and we shall get that done. There is no question about it. Even, by the way, I was in Brussels one day. Brussels node was being repaired, and Brussels is one of the areas we should say is developed. So even our country, where these roads have been damaged, three things can be accounted, it can account for that. One, a lot of traffic. Because if there was no traffic in these roads, by the way, which we should also not be blinded from, a lot of traffic have damaged these roads. Weather, bad weather, have done its toll. But old age of these roads also have done its toll. So we are aware of that, we are mindful of it, but let it not blind us from the new roads that have been worked on. Even crossing over here to go to Naguru, yes, there are potholes somewhere there. As you move from Naguru Police down there, it is here, but you can see the construction work going on. So really, we are confident that even these potholes will go off. And remember the other day, by the way, the president directed, I should not only say the president, but also the chairperson of our party, the chairman of NRM, directed that money be released and the Kampala be given priority. But then it is not only Kampala, remember. Other towns need that attention. We are there. We shall get there.
Yes, Dr. Baryomunsi, you were submitting a thought before technical issues.
Yes.
We gave you a glitch.
I don't know why the machine has to disobey the ICT. No, I was saying that we went to the polls 2 years ago, and I just want to remind ourselves that we went into the polls at the height of COVID-19, and we even campaigned through scientific gatherings, and we had to grapple with the challenge of COVID-19 around elections and post-elections. But one way you can even measure success is that we have been able to suppress and contain COVID-19. Along the way, we even got Ebola, which has been also contained. We got inflation and cost of living getting high. There was anxiety about the prices of fuel and other things, and all these have been contained. And the economy has been kept stable, generally, contrary to the fears which people had that we are going to crash in the post-COVID era. So I can say there is stability, and all pillars of the state are functioning adequately. Look at Parliament. parliament was constituted, it is vibrant, it is passing laws and doing its work. You look at the judiciary, well assembled, it is functioning, it is working. You look at the executive, the cabinet and ministries and districts, they are functioning and executing their work. Because NRM is a government of continuity. We need to appreciate that it was the party which was running government in the previous term, and therefore Ugandans renewed the mandate to continue. And there has been stability, there hasn't been any major disruption, and we are basically implementing what we pledged. Like Dr. Tweheyo said, we are doing very well, because whatever we promised in the manifesto, this is now 2 years out of the 5. We are doing well. We are trying to implement all these pledges. Like I have said, the economy has remained buoyant, strong, despite the post-COVID stress which many countries face all over. We've been able to keep the economic growth above 3%, about 3.3%. You recall the statement when the president correctly said, we have hit the threshold for a middle income status, but we have to maintain that for the next 3 years. So the economy remains strong, and therefore there is no cause for worry. We are not very worried. We are moving very well. Like my colleague has said, there is steady progress. And we are focusing on service delivery. One of the major areas that we pledged and are working on is that in the past, NRM has worked on service delivery by constructing infrastructure, roads, electricity, schools, health centers, name it. But we did pledge that we are going to put a focus on wealth creation. How do we empower Ugandans, especially those who are in subsistence livelihood, to earn income, to create wealth, to have money in their pocket? And that's how this parish development model comes in, which I hope we shall be able to explain and give details. That's why we have put money in UDB, Uganda Development Bank, that for those who want to do heavy investments like factories, industries, they can access money which is affordable. We have put money in the commercial banks for relief, post-COVID relief for these small, medium level companies and businesses to be able to access money. We put 100 billion, which was reinforced with 100 billion from private sector, and HIPAA accessing these funds. Then for our ordinary people, we are sending money through special funds like those for women, people with disability, and then most recently, the parish development model, where we send money to circles at parish level for Ugandans to participate in the economy and create income. So we are implementing the pledges and the promises which we made through the manifesto.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Chris. Mr. Bashaasha, you're in charge of the manifesto implementation unit. The NRM has won just about every election we have had over the last couple of decades, and so what normally happens is that there will be promises made all of the time. And is there a danger sometimes maybe that because you've been in charge for so long that it's very easy to renege on some of the promises simply because after all you're back in charge, so who cares if a promise or two gets left behind along the way?
Well, excuse me. Thank you. Let me say that that one, just our stay in power, is what can I call it? Like a success factor for or an advantage for us. But that does not conclude to what you are alluding to. Definitely, there are some commitments that have been made that may actually, their project life may outlive the term life, the political term life, especially these heavy infrastructure projects. And because they have, sometimes they take time to take off due to some necessary processes like the procurement, the designs, and the rest of the issues. So by the time they come to start implementation, you find probably you are in the third year of the political term. So this spill over, as you can see, we have many that have spilled over to this term, which are being concluded and commissioned. You can talk of the Vonyoro roads. You can talk of the remaining part of the bypass, the northern bypass. These are things that started in the last political term, but they have spilled over. You can look at the seed schools, which we pledged per sub-county, even health centers. So we're still committed. We're still committed because resources are already committed in that respect, and we have to make sure that those projects are concluded. We may have challenges where some projects may not have been implemented, not because we wanted to leave them out, but maybe there were other reasons beyond the expected assumptions. You can talk of like SGR. We couldn't take off with SGR because there are other factors at play which couldn't allow it. We couldn't have a conclusion on the FID for that. But still, it is still on our agenda. What we have done probably now is to look at how we can improve the meter gauge railway, and a lot of investment has already gone in that direction for purposes of improving haulage of goods and also reducing the cost of doing business in the country by making sure that the haulage of goods is realized at a low cost compared if we used the road. So I can say, yes, there could be certain projects that probably were not done, but not because it's a deliberate effort by government to ignore them, but no, there could be reasons beyond beyond our reach as a country because of the many processes involved.
Yeah. So Dr. Baryomunsi touched on the fact that we've had to deal with a pandemic, COVID. You started this new term literally in the throes of a global pandemic.
Yeah.
How badly did that affect your plans for the implementation of this manifesto, and how did that then influence the way you've gone around trying to implement it?
Okay. First of all, the pandemic came in actually even way back in the last term, but I think we suffered the first casualty when we had just crossed into the first year of the term around March of 2021. First of all, it did not only affect it, or it has not affected what we are planning now, but it also affected what was supposed to have been in the conclusive stages as we are concluding the term. Because at that moment, government had to move very fast and make sure that attention is given to how we save lives than probably allowing these projects to continue. So most of the resources at that point were diverted to see how life is saved. And definitely crossing over into this new term, as you are aware, the global economy was hit. And of course, Uganda is part of the global economy. It couldn't survive from these COVID effects. The whole supply chains were a bit disorganized. Some of the factories actually were closed, where probably were sourcing many of our products to deal with the projects. Some experts who had even gone out for a holiday couldn't even come back in time to have most of these projects concluded because of the bans that were in place for the international flights. So, as if that's not enough, that also affected the internal business dynamics, and we couldn't realize the revenue pass that we needed to support us, and it definitely impacted negatively on the way we should start off with the plans that we have as far as the deliverables we have in this manifesto. Coupled with that was that usually the first years are planning years, And then also the government now was coming out with a new arrangement on how to deal with planning and budgeting, the program approach. We are shifting from the sectoral to program approach of planning and budgeting. And definitely this first year had to address how the whole architecture of government is aligned to meet this new design. But effective this financial year, a lot has been focused in the real implementation. And like many of my colleagues have said, we are witnessing where now a lot of deliverables are being planned for and are being implemented. We may not have moved well as per expectations because of what I have raised, the post-COVID effects, and also this transition from the sectoral to program approach. But also, you know, when you look at it critically, usually the implementation follows the financial year because it is the resources that matter. However, the political term follows the calendar year. So you'll find that there are always those contradictions. So you are losing time. You are losing real time. By now we are talking of 2 years into the term, but if you assess the real time that is used for real investment and implementation, you could be talking of 1 year. Serious implementation. So all these definitely impact on the speed and the real time as far as implementation is concerned.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad you spoke about the challenges, especially in the implementation. Dr. Tweheyo, let me come to you. As one of those people, let's take the gloves off and look at agriculture. 68% of people involved directly in agriculture, more than 90% indirectly. You and I go to the market and buy food. We look at that way. You have gone ahead and put it there and said, you know, the biggest challenges are post-harvesting, raw materials going out there. You've also gone ahead in this manifesto and talked about the 4 acres. You've talked about plantation, pasture, animals, and you've given us what the breakdown of the 4 acres should be like.
Yes.
Is this the reality on ground?
Yes and no. A number of people have not taken full heed of the realities that should go with the 4-acre model. At first, they took it for a joke. When they saw His Excellency giving or making a demonstration the other time in Ruero, showing them really how you can do it. And that's why we should appreciate the president. You know, he comes down to the lowest to show what the lowest of the low could do to come out of poverty. He gave his demonstration in Kaumu, if you can remember very well, saying here you can put pineapples, here you can put chicken, here you can put fish, here you can grow your bananas and all that, and it works. For sure it works. So in many areas, people have taken off. Those who took heed. Those who took it for a joke are suffering. But at the moment I can tell you, that is why Uganda, we should count ourselves completely lucky. Lucky in a sense that agriculture has saved us, even through the COVID period, to make sure that we have food. We didn't die essentially of famine. Actually, the deaths came even after COVID, when people were suffering because of either the weather situations or because of the challenges, other challenges in different areas. But agriculture has been given attention. I can tell you, in many areas in this country, areas have received tractors to do extensive agriculture now, beyond the 4-acre model. I can tell you, the president has been consistent on lifting our own people from poverty to a certain level where they should have money in their pocket. When you look at the PDM program, then you can really understand that His Excellency is consistent. Quite often the elites tend to look at it and say, yeah, but why are you talking about this? From the time he took to politics in the 1960s, when he started explaining to his own people how they should stop this pastoralism running around and settle in one place and improve their pastures and improve their livelihood, he has been consistent. And if you look at even the past programs, which most people have frustrated, by the way, that is when you should cheer this man that he can never give up. Because the Northern Uganda reconstruction programs came in. People would be given seeds, people would be given hoes, but you would see little progress. Reason? A number of elites would demonize these programs and take them as if people would not get it. But he's constantly telling people that they should differentiate between wealth and development. Wealth is what you have in your pocket, what you have as a person, what you own. Development is what the government puts in place for the common good. The roads he has struggled to put in place. The schools he has struggled to put in place. Electricity is everywhere, even when in some cases thugs have been stealing wires, stealing whatever metals that connect, consistently moving on. A number of dams have been put in place, but then what then happens to this common man who is given a tap of water and needs to pay for the water that comes in? That is where he says, look, let's look at the 4-acre model. Look, let's put PDM. And by the way, I am surprised that many people have not understood what PDM is meant for. It is not meant for those who are rich and able to raise their own capital. No. It is meant for those people in the villages, or even in towns, by the way. Quite often when we mention the low-earning people, we tend to put attention to the villages. In the cities, in the towns, they are very low-income earners. And that's where the attention has been put. If you are living in a town, in a suburb, and you must do something, then you should be taught how to work on maybe growing vegetables around your house. And what capital do you need? Just a tin of seeds, of tomatoes, of cabbage, or that. But where do you get that money from? From the little that PDM is bringing in the parishes. I have heard people talking about parishes where the population is too high. Yes. But is all that population deserving? If you talk of a parish like, let's say, Kororo, Kororo is one of the parishes that have the highest of the high in this country. But do you think in Kororo there are no people who live there who deserve some support to develop their own selves, maybe to rear some chicken, maybe to grow some vegetables, which they can sell to these people who are going to Nakasero or any other place to buy? Haven't you been in Kororo? And you see those people selling mangoes. Don't you think those people really selling mangoes deserve some support to raise some capital? Absolutely.
People were calling us. We are starving and dying in the Kororo and these suburbs.
Yes.
Those who are in Boys Quarter and so forth. So there is a population also there which
absolutely
requires
so we
kind
are
of support.
consistent in supporting our people and raising them from poverty, not only through agriculture, but through other mechanisms, either of petty trade or of little production, where they can raise out of poverty and survive.
Yeah.
The most important thing is, do we want our citizens to survive? The answer is yes. Do we want all? That is why we call it inclusive. Right. Inclusive involvement in the money business. We all want that. And that's why this government is so consistent on the attention of the law. And by the way, there has been reasonable improvement from the other 68 we talk about to about 38 or 40% that are still within the ranges of poverty.
Yeah.
And therefore we must get that done.
Because the truth of the matter is, Honorable baryomunsi, is that anything above 30% for your population to be poor is still quite a very big number, and something must be done about that. And you did say we need to talk a bit about PDM to make sure people understand it. So let's take some time to delve into PDM as probably the benchmark for the manifesto for this particular term. And Dr. Tweheyo mentioned the fact that, and I think he alluded to the fact that some of the previous programs in the different manifestos in previous years have maybe been frustrated. I don't know if the word is frustrated or they have just not worked. You advise us.
I should say frustrated.
Frustrated.
Yes.
So why?
Because somewhere it works.
Right.
In some other cases where they are negated by the very poor who are supposed to support them fully, they are frustrated. And I say that without doubt and without shying away from. I don't want to shy away from whatever fact that is there. Yes, these programs have worked. Yes, in some cases they are frustrated. That's why at one point we had to look at the other program of NADS and others and involve the army to make sure that they deliver the services which would no doubt be done. And when it was done, if you want to know what is happening now, go into the coffee industry. You will be surprised.
Right.
Yes.
And you can attribute that to the involvement then at that time from the military into NADS in terms of what they did.
Absolutely.
So the question then becomes, and I'll start with you, Dr. Baryomunsi, and then we'll go around the room again. What makes PDM different from the different programs that we have had, Bonawa Gagawale and what we've done, Youth Livelihood, and all of these others that won't be frustrated, but also to guarantee that we're not going to have the same sort of challenges with PDM?
Yes, thank you very much. President Yoweri Museveni has been very passionate about the issue of the welfare of Ugandans, especially the people down there. And that's why in the past, government has designed different interventions. And I can say they have worked, because when you look at some of the impact indicators, they actually show there has been progress. Before I come to PDM, for instance, those who live in subsistence livelihood. In the last census, which was carried out in 2014, the figure was 69% of Ugandans, actually 68%. Now it has come to 39%. When you look at the figures in the mid-90s, the proportion of Ugandans who lived below the poverty line was as high as 56%. Now we talk of 20.3%. So there has been progress. But whenever we would go into the countryside, like me going to the constituency, people always had complaints about some of these funds and programs. One, they complained that some of the money would be eaten through corruption. So we send money, it goes to the accounts at the district and then sub-county. So there were complaints that this money would be taken, true or not true, by those who put on neckties, the civil servants at the district, at the sub-county. That's what the complaint from the people. Number two, like Operation Wealth Creation and NADS, there was a complaint that the planting materials and seedlings would come late. At times they would be of poor quality. Maybe the seedlings come when the season is already gone because of the bureaucracy and the layers through which they would pass. Number three, that the kind of support, the money we're sending to the people was inadequate, was little. So that's what led to developing of the parish development model. So now we said, why don't we then mobilize people at the parish level so that, first of all, the money should be sent from Ministry of Finance to the parish, and it bypasses the MP, the district, the sub-county, it goes. So how the PDM works is that people are mobilized at a village level, and people form groups, what we call enterprise groups. They look at the various enterprises which they see profitable as per that area, whether it is fish farming or growing coffee or piggery for those who can do pigs or poultry, and they form groups. And then they gather at the parish level and register a circle. The members of the different enterprise groups now constitute themselves into a parish circle, and then they elect an executive and open a bank account in a financial institution in that area, in a bank, maybe Post Bank or Centenary or Stanbic or any financial institution there. And the leaders of the circle are the signatories to this account, not the government, civil servants or politicians, but the chairman, the secretary, and the treasurer of this circle are the signatories. So now we have said every year we shall be putting 100 million shillings into this parish circle. And if you calculate how much money now we are giving parishes, it is substantially much bigger than what was going through youth livelihood and these small funds we're giving. Secondly, now the people in this circle, the ordinary Ugandans, will be buying the materials of their choice and the quality they want. So we have stopped NADS, stopped the OWC from buying materials and selling them to farmers, but now we have put money in this circle. Now, the members of this circle can apply at an individual level, and you get up to 1 million shillings If you have chosen the enterprise you want to deal in, then you can buy whether it is piglets or chicks or planting materials on your own now. So that's what creates a difference between parish development model and the other programs. We have also said of this money which goes to the parish, it will be distributed this way. 30% of this money will be given to women. So that means of the 100 million going to a parish, now the women will get 30 million. And then another 30 million goes to the youth. Then 10%, which is 10 million of the 100, goes to persons with disability. Then another 10 goes to the elderly, the older persons. Then the rest, who are the men who are not youth and not elderly, take 20%. So if you compute in terms of quantitative amounts, because initially you'd find a place like Kanungu district gets maybe 100 million for youth in a year. And then when they form youth groups, you find they are scattered groups getting 12 million, 10 million, which was very inadequate. But now every parish, we have 102 parishes in Kanungu. Every parish now, the youth will be getting 30 million times 100 parishes. That is much more money than how it was in the past. And the money is going directly to the parish, managed by the local people themselves. And they are able to get the money and buy whatever they want to buy and invest in these productive enterprises. So it's a major departure from the way the old programs were designed, and we hope with better supervision it should be able to deliver much better than what we saw in the different funds which were giving under the Entandikwa Youth Livelihood, Bonabaga Gawale. So it's a major departure now, and we feel it's going to work and function better.
Yeah. Mr. Bashaasha, you happen to have the distinction of not only running the Manifesto Implementation Unit, but also you have led an entire district for quite a while. So you're probably well placed to give us some sort of status of how PDM is doing so far in Bushenyi, for example. I'm sure you still get to go back home quite a bit and have very strong roots with the local community. So if we can use you to tell us, Honorable Baryomunsi has painted a very good picture of how the model should work. That's on paper. When it's taken off paper and brought into actual implementation in Bushenyi, how has that been going so far?
Let me say this is that, like I had observed earlier, the serious implementation as far as PDM is concerned also took effect within this financial year. And it's just now that these circles have started receiving, and so are the beneficiaries. So I don't think there is much now that we can assess and look at the impact of what this program is doing. But we can say successfully we saw the formation of the circles across the country. Successfully we can say over 90% of these circles have already received the monies across the country. We can also say successfully where the money has gone, the beneficiaries were identified, have started receiving the monies. But like any other program, I can say it cannot be without challenges. Some are design related, whereby still the beneficiaries are complaining of the bureaucracies, like so many documents to fill, but these are for control purposes. Maybe over time this could be improved. There are still issues where maybe in some areas money has come, in some areas money has not come, and beneficiaries, and this raises the anxiety of the beneficiaries. We have had also issues of corruption, because now I'm putting it at a national scale, because I meet these local leaders across the government. Corruption in some cases where some monies have been diverted from the intended purposes, and then they are trying to be used as for administrative, what you'd call operational purposes. But like you have seen, government is not sleeping. It has been on those who tried to divert. Some have been arrested and taken to institutions of law to manage them. Others have been made to refund, and we are happy there are a lot of refunds that have been made in that direction. And what we have also noted is that on the onset, the program was very exciting when all the citizens thought they were going to benefit from this program. But along the way, it was made clear that the beneficiaries must be that 39% who are still in the subsistence economy. Now, that also caused like a withdrawal effect, especially on the people who would be helping these people who are still there, whom you call the low end. Now, because they thought they were benefiting and then they are not benefiting, they are now, so they went into a withdrawal mode. Now it's now that they are coming to terms with the fact that they are not the beneficiaries. Two, they must play their leadership roles to mobilize these citizens to take advantage of this program of government. You know, it's a cultural issue here in this country where somebody is not benefiting from something. He thinks, okay, since I'm not there, therefore I have no role. So there is a leadership question here on how the leaders can help our people to take advantage of this program. But I can say large and by that the program can be rated over 80% in terms of implementation, especially on this financial inclusion. You know, there are 7 pillars of this program. The other programs are going on well. Of course, they need much more than this. They need logistical support, especially issues like IT and data management at that level. We are still grappling with the issue of mindset change, which is also another strong pillar for this program at that level. The governance issues, I think largely they have been addressed because we have a governance structure right away from the ministry up to the parish, where even these, what we call the PDC, Parish Development Committees, they have been formed. The other pillars, I think they are progressing, not at the pace, but it is also important that the program or the model is appreciated in the context of the 7 pillars. This is just one part. This is just one financial inclusion. And so many people tend to talk about the financial inclusion because it has the money, and people still think this is the casino as usual. They want to politicize the money, but we are saying no. This money is meant for this purpose, and therefore we need the leaders to help our people to appreciate this model better. Yeah. That's what I can say.
That's very interesting. So we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, you did mention the C word, corruption, and that's a really, really big one that needs to be tackled, because we've had the president scream and moan and complain so much about corruption. So how come we are failing to deal with it for this entire time? But also some of the other pillars of the manifesto that need to be talked about. How are we doing on creating jobs in this term, Timothy, as well as education and health? That's a very big one, of course, for us to be able to pick up on. And would like for you to be able to join us. We've got 3 very important people who are in charge of this manifesto implementation. If you have any questions for them, please do share them with us. You can use the hashtag SpotlightUG, and we'll be more than glad to pick those up as we come back in just a moment here on Spotlight UG on UBC TV and NBS with myself, Ben Mwine, and Timothy Nyangweso. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Great.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Spotlight UG, the show that brings you insightful discussions on the issues that matter most to Ugandans, will this Monday, May 8th, 2023, at 10 p.m. place the NRM under the spotlight. On Monday, November 2nd, 2022, the National Resistance Movement, NRM, launched its manifesto, outlining its vision for Uganda's future. The manifesto covers a wide range of areas, from education and health to justice and security. Now almost 2 years into the NRM's term in office, and with the Manifesto week in the offing, it's time to take stock for their progress. Have the government MDS been successful in achieving their goals? What challenges have they faced, and what are their plans for the future? To help us answer these questions, we have Willis Bashaasha, the Director of the Manifesto Implementation Unit in the Office of the President, among other key officials under the theme, assessing the NRM's progress in implementing its 2021-2026 Manifesto. Tune in to Spotlight UG on Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 10 p.m. on UBC TV. Join the conversation online via hashtag Spotlight UG.
Jerry con! Jerry con! Hey, Master Blaster! Touch him, man! Buy Jerry con with muscle! Those ones who say go for you only. Mundawa! Best group is I teach you. But never go on which the squad because of the cover is very far. Is you serious? Is serious you? What? Yeah? You step it on it. Add kilometers to your legs and you get your sugar. We buy meat from Umaru and Umaru refuse to give you enough meat. Mama! Show him that they don't joke with you. Umaru, Jerry car.
Okukakaluka n'okulungi kwetaagako omuntu akuyambako n'olwekyo tujja kukuteerawo embeera esaanidde osobole okukola ekisinga awamu teri kitulema.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
She is our family's pride, and as her father, I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sauti 116.
Iwakato, this is a quick call. I'm almost out of minutes. Now, the center.
Why rush through such important conversations? Airtel Uganda has made it possible for you to call across all networks in Uganda at the best rates with the new Bona voice bundles. Stay connected anytime, anywhere, with minutes valid for calls on all networks. Dial *100*1#. Select voice bundles and select Bona voice bundles today. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you? Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for. Campus? Really? Hey, you don't remember me? Okay, so how can I help you? I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap. My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die. What? Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tweheyo, refrain from unnecessary engagement with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
And plans. Join the conversation online via hashtag
get implemented. Dr. James Tweheyo, who is a SEC member for the NRM, Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, Minister of ICT and National Guidance, and Mr. Willis Bashaasha, who is in charge of the Manifesto Implementation Unit and State House. And want to find out from you, if you have any questions for our guests tonight, you can feel free to share those using the hashtag SpotlightUG, and we'll be more than glad to pass those on to them. And we already have a couple of questions from you, so please do keep them coming, and we'll make sure in this hour that we pass them on, Timothy, to our guests to try and answer the questions to the people who they are here to serve.
And even as we get into it, we ended the show, the first segment there, when we were talking about corruption. And Dr. Tweheyo, let me come to you. 2020, the president came out and had an anti-corruption walk. It was something that we celebrated, praised Colonel Nakalema then. 2021, he comes out and says the children of the historicals should be integrated in public service because they're passionate, they're not interested in wealth. But this year, during the late Joan Kagezi Memorial, he came out and said the thieves should be arrested, jailed, no political office, and pay whatever they have stolen. The big question is, can we win this fight against corruption as a country?
Yes, we can, if we all work together and join in. You know, corruption has its own tentacles. The corrupt tend to be seen from a certain perspective, but they are facilitated and supported by those who should have reported them instead. I'll give you a simple example. In most of the local governments, they have the district service commissions. These district service commissions have become a nightmare. They will tell you that the job is bought at maybe about 3 million or 4 million. A job of one being a teacher, a primary school teacher, where he earns 480,000. They will tell you they paid in. And the more they pay, the more eventually they come out say, me I paid because if they eat from 5 people and the job is 1. That is when the exposure comes in. But surprisingly, even when you're going to investigate and you want the other person who paid to come and give evidence, he will shy away. That's a very big challenge. So corruption should not only be seen at the bigger entity. No, it should be seen from all perspectives. When somebody steals a hen and the LOC1 chairman says, no, now you see, let's not take him to court, then there is an underlying element of corruption. I will tell you, corruption, the president has come out very, very strongly on this. Until recently, when the president was talking about the iron sheet scandal, people thought maybe, oh, he has left it all together, he has ignored it. No, he has come out firmly. But he has also been consistent, knowing that several times some people are reported to be corrupt when in reality they are not. Even when you go to court, they always say courts of law are some of the areas where the judges and magistrates are very corrupt. No. In court, when somebody wins a case, then the magistrate is good. When somebody loses the case, then the magistrate is corrupt. If he goes to the other level and wins the case, who had lost it, then the magistrate is now not corrupt and good. So you can always see the people who are supposed to support and facilitate this, they do the reverse and don't give any support. Let me tell you also another thing. The corrupt earn money, and earn money in big sums. And corrupt as they are, they use the same money to corrupt those who would have fought against them. And that's where the danger lies. I will tell you, in some cases, somebody may be caught, taken to police. The police, in some cases, not in all cases, by the way, in some cases, fail to prosecute because the investigating person has looked at the sum he's investigating and negotiates with the other one who has taken or stolen something and says, well, let me see how we handle this case. And that's where the danger lies. And I don't want to say the corrupt are only government officials, not at all. I went somewhere and had a discussion with people who are telling me, you see, these people who are opposition, they are getting contracts, using the money to get contracts through the contracts committees in different districts, and then they use the money to beat us or to destroy or disorganize us. I told them, yes, you are the ones who should open up and tell the truth. Until we reach a point where we openly tell the truth, where we can openly testify before the responsible centers, including courts of law, not only to testify because I paid money, they never gave me the job. Why don't you say, this is demanding money from me? When you fail to get the job, that's when you come out to say it. But before that, you are paying, hoping you are the only one paying and the others are in. There are also other cases, those which are what you call official corruption. Somebody comes to the office, wants support, you are facilitated in that office to do the job, Yet you start telling him, I am supposed to come to site and I need money for fuel. There are also cases, terrible cases, where the elected leaders, especially the councillors and other leaders, they sit down, look at the project that is coming, and say, what do we get from this? They want the contractor to give them something, and he is or she is awarded the contract, that company. And at the end of the day, they are the ones supposed to monitor and supervise. And when the contract fails, then they begin saying, you know, we should have done ABCD. I have seen it in some roads in local governments. Local governments, the councillors say, by the way, have you ever asked yourselves, why does a local councillor who earns on average 200,000 shillings and has voluntarily asked the people to vote him, why should he sell his house to go and compete and throw out money? Why? You should ever ask that. Why should a local leader, a chairman LC5, who will earn 1.7 million or 2 million, go traverse the whole district paying money? And you know, that is when eventually some of the people like my brother here, Bashaasha, decides to withdraw and says, no, I cannot take it. Because some of them are openly corrupt. I can tell you also another scenario. Recently, I was in one area in this country. Let me openly say it in Busoga. These people were given money from the teachers' circles. And I can tell you, some of the administrators in the districts ate the money. They shared. The same thing happened here in Mpiji. Money is being recovered. The same thing happened in Wakiso. Money is being recovered from those who should have been only distributors of these resources. So, if you ask corruption, I will tell you corruption is syndicated. I will tell you corruption is not for the leaders or people of NRM. I will tell you corruption is facilitated by all citizens who fail, including by the religious leaders, I should say, without fear. I can tell you, if you go slowly to see how religious leaders conduct themselves, they will invite a team and say, Bishop X is going to retire. And since the bishop is going to retire, he has not finished his house. So what are you saying, you Christians? And you think that's not corruption? Eh? They will tell you now, head teachers, come. This is your part. Then where does the head teacher get this money from? From the school. And in the school, how does he account for it if it is a USE or UPE fund? All those things happen, and therefore, until we are able to come out and say no to corruption, all of us, I can tell you, it is a monster that is swallowing us. And the president has made all efforts.
So, Honorable Baryomunsi, what do you do? Because from what Dr. Tweheyo is saying, look, and he doesn't have to say it, everyone who is an adult of sound mind in Uganda will tell you in some shape or form they know what corruption is because they have interfaced with it in their daily life. So we do acknowledge that it's a very big problem. Unfortunately for you, because the NRM has been in charge for so long, most people will attribute it to you because you're the ones in charge, and so you're the ones who are overseeing this as far as we are concerned. So how do we go about managing this problem?
Yes, the NRM pursues a policy of zero tolerance to corruption, and we've been very clear in documentation and whatever we do.
On paper?
No, just hold on. That's why the NRM government has deliberately put in place institutions, the Inspectorate of Government, the PPDA, Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets, Auditor General, CID, Committees of Parliament chaired by the opposition, anti-corruption units in the State House. There is one that the President announced the other day to be headed by Afani Nakalema for investors, and many of these institutions. So we have put an institutional framework, and we have a functional court system with even a court specializing in trying corruption-related cases. And therefore, that commitment is there. The question you would ask, is it the President and us NRM leaders who have the sole responsibility of fighting corruption? The answer is no. I think all of us in Uganda, irrespective of the position you occupy, we have a cardinal responsibility to fight corruption. We would want the victims of corrupt tendencies to speak out. If they are constructing a school in your community and there are visible signs of shoddy work being done, why do you keep quiet as a citizen? Why wouldn't you say, no, we deserve better? In most cases, like Tweheyo has said, the people just keep quiet. They say, oh, the minister, you should fight corruption, let the president fight it. But the president is not in Kanungu. There's been a quarrel in Kanungu about a sub-county facility, sub-county administration in Borok and the chamber sub-county where they put a very tiny, like a chicken house. And if I've been on social media, I said, how could the government spend money on a small, tiny building that's a sub-county headquarters? The president is not there, but the citizens are taking it up and challenging the leadership of the district that account for the money which was sent. So we would want citizens to actively come out and join the fight against corruption and put us to task to explain and account to them as people who are in the government. So that's one area we have to improve so that everybody plays his or her part. The other area are like investors. That's why the president has put a special unit now to handle investors. When they come and they want to put money in this country, if there are people who are asking for bribes, if there are people who are failing to make decisions and are delaying these investments, then there should be a functioning process to help these people. So on the side of government, we are committed, but we just call upon citizens. If you are a bus driver and the police is saying don't overload the bus, but then you buy a new vision or monitor, you put the money in a newspaper. When you find a traffic police officer, you give him the new vision or the monitor to find money inside. The driver is not a government official. This is a citizen. So corruption and corrupt behavior is not only an issue of us who are in the government, but like Mr. Tweheyo has said, across society. I have seen fights in particular churches where church leaders have built mansions and Christians are saying, but where are you getting the money? How much salary do you get? How can you put up $1 billion plus worth house when we are failing to do the church work and so forth? In civil society, at times we are pressurized by civil society as government people, but you look at the money they get, the vehicles they drive. So corruption cuts across society, and all of us must demonstrate the commitment, the enthusiasm, the zeal to fight this corruption. Like this issue of the lifestyle audit the IGG was talking about. If somebody is a civil servant, probably you know how much he earns, and he has put up a mansion which is worth billions, why can't you members of that say, no, we have to raise this issue? Can he tell us where he has got money? So we need...
Instead we praise him.
Instead you praise him, you call him for fundraising and so forth and so forth. And also the pressure that the public puts on us. I enter church and say, now that the minister has come, the roofing of the church is complete. Where do you expect me to get the money from? Sometimes the behavior of our people is also what is forcing people to put their hands in the public resources. So it requires and calls upon all of us, whether in the government or any other position, whether you are just a citizen, all of us to play our part, and we support the president. We can successfully defeat this monster of corruption. We hate it, and we are committed to fight it.
Mr. Bashaasha, you having been an LC5 in Bushenyi, Honorable has given us his experience, but also the picture from the executive and also SEC there. We've also had the experience from Dr. Tweheyo. You, on the ground, in the district, as he spoke about the commissions, what is your experience? And you shared a few stories before we came on air, but what is your experience and how was it there fighting corruption?
First of all, I want to share the very sentiments my colleagues have raised here to say that the president is very committed and categorical in this fight. And he has been very clear over a number of years. Only that as Ugandans, we sometimes take certain statements to be I don't know, either as jokes or statements in passing. But if you have been following the president and in all the manifestos we have had, the issue of corruption is one of the key deliverables that we are talking about. Secondly, the government has not laid back in this fight. We have both what you'd call the infrastructure, that is, as far as the institutions that should fight this are concerned. We have the legislative and policy agenda, which the government has also pushed to make sure that this problem is done away. Then we have also the mobilization, the guidance, like the word from the Fountain of Honor, and his standing as far as some of these issues are concerned. However, I also want to say, and from my experience, like you, you requested, is that when we talk of corruption, it is always attributed to those who are in public service. But this problem has permeated beyond those who even serve in the public service. Even in the private sector, it is a very, very serious and big issue. Some of these loaves of bread we buy, they are supposed to be 1 kilo, but if you weighed them, you'd find them 700 grams. We have found bags of cement which are supposed to be 50 kilograms, around 47 kilos or 45, even full of sand. Have you been, if you are not careful on these roadside traders, these old ladies and whatever, and you keep in the car and you want to be a maika, a boss, and you tell him, put for me two packages of onions, and for you stay in the car, she will put one, and you say cross the boot, you leave thinking there are two that have been put in the car, only to find it is one that has remained. Are we aware that even the fuel we could be getting from these petrol stations is not worth the liters that you have paid for? So it's a problem that we need to agree as citizens to say this is a monster, this is a common enemy, is a common enemy now in as far as our government and state is concerned. And to me, my view is that we shall not finish this problem when through finger pointing. You know, the president has failed, you know, the judiciary has not done its part, you know, the police. I think all of us, we need to ask ourselves, what is our contribution in that fight to deal with this issue of corruption? And to me, it starts with individual actions. If you are assigned a responsibility or you are in a given trade or whatever, are you doing it the way it is supposed to be done according to its standards and procedures, so that those actions where you know that the action you are going to take will be compromising the levels, or if they are there for self-gain, definitely we will run away from what my honorable minister here was talking about. So, to me, it's very unfair to even say, you know, NRM has failed. What have we not seen in other institutions? But in Urinyankore there is a certain proverb, which I will not use here, of saying the head of the home sometimes takes care of certain issues, even when things are not right. But still, it is a cardinal responsibility of every citizen to make sure that those actions that move into causing that corrupt behavior are avoided. And if we avoid it, definitely you would find nothing across board. Then we also have the challenge of the law. You know, this is a law-abiding nation. We have what we call the presumption of innocence. You know, now, even if I found you picking this chair from here, taking it out, and I took it upon myself to beat you or to discipline you without going through the formal court procedures, I can... actually, your case may be excused, and then the case shifts to me, who has slapped you out of anger or whatever. So, maybe that's another area that we need to reform in as far as dealing with some of these issues is concerned. But again, we have these issues of human rights. We have to respect the law. We have to handle the human rights correctly.
Dr. baryomunsi, you happen to lead the ministry that is responsible for information and national guidance. Do you think maybe it might be time for you as a ministry to think about a national campaign that sort of focuses on mindset change? Because from what we're hearing the three of you say, this thing seems to be deeply ingrained in our people. I think one of the examples that hasn't been shared is the fact that nowadays you have our children buying votes to become prefects in primary school.
Absolutely.
So if it's going down to that level, that doesn't bode well for us as a country in another generation or so. So is it maybe time to think about actually running some national campaigns specifically targeting mindset change in that direction?
I think you're right. We are writing a national guidance policy as a ministry, but you're right that we may need to mount a very huge campaign. There is somebody who had applied for a job of a parish chief, and I think he was asked 4 million shillings, and he came to me. He wanted me to give him 4 million shillings. I said, for what? As I want to bribe a district service commission to get this job. You see somebody getting the audacity to come to a government minister to ask for the 4 million to go and bribe a district service commission in order to get a job. So I said honestly, there is a mindset issue, and there is a need for us to mount a huge campaign among us adults, but even more important among our children in schools, because increasingly I think people think and are taking it like corrupt behavior is normal and should be accepted by our society, and yet that shouldn't be the case. So you're right, we should mount a campaign, especially among our children in the schools. You find children also in primary school want to print posters, they want to promise that they will slaughter bulls for the voters and so forth. Maybe they are learning bad things from us, the old politicians, but there is a need for hygiene in our whole society, so that people know that these corrupt tendencies, corrupt behaviors are bad and should be punished, so that we bring morality in our society once again.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Dr. Tweheyo.
Yes.
You have a comment?
Yeah, I think we need to understand that reporting corruption is a high-risk venture. And we have seen many people who report corruption instead suffer the weight of the corrupt. And this is where I appeal the media to come in. Please, media, why don't you support especially these people who are reporting corruption? Because when people report corruption, I have seen it physically, that most people who report corruption either pay the highest price and suffer, and that's why many people restrain themselves from reporting it. And therefore the media, if you came in honestly, all of you, not one, not two all media houses, you would be supportive in exposing the corrupt. And you used to have the investigative journalism, and I think it's still there, it survives. Possibly you need equally to support this venture and use your investigative journalists to get facts, because I know you equally have suffered by paying a lot of damages to the corrupt in some cases. You raise something, the man or woman takes you to court, you don't have all the facts as expected by court, because you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, as the courts say, and you pay the high price. So there is that fear. I don't know what we should do, and I really call upon the public and all those listening, they should guide on what should be done to protect those people who report corruption, because that is what makes them restrained and constrained from reporting it. And when they report it and suffer, then the next person will say, I wouldn't want to suffer the same fate this other person suffered. So you, the media, please put a program or a venture or a support mechanism in which you would get facts from the ground through investigations, and then you help expose mostly the corrupt.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tweheyo. I would actually put it to you that we are doing our best in that regard, and I think if it wasn't for us, the iron sheets might have ended up on people's sheds and stayed there, but we We did do something about it, and we know where we are because of that.
But more still required. We shouldn't give up.
Dr. Tweheyo, let me stay with you, and let's switch gears. One of the elements, especially of this manifesto, is delivering education and wealth.
Yes.
The literacy in this country is about 76.5%. There's UPE, UCE, and there's also the loans to be able to go to the university there.
That's right.
The biggest question is education still the key? And also, how does the literacy translate into job creation and jobs?
Education is still, I think, the leading venture in this country that would lead us to prosperity. And if you have realized, the government of Uganda and the party itself have gone an additional mile to ensure that we even adjust in our curriculum. It is not only going to school to get the dynamics of learning, and no, there is a lot of improvement in terms of skilling. Whichever level you reach, you should be able to have demonstrable skills which you can use even when you fall out. This time, we used to say, if somebody finishes P7, you even get your literal certificate, or if the certificates are still there anyway, and you walk back home much more and worse than you were at the time you entered. By this time, there are skilling programs that come in. And if you have noted, most secondary schools now, they have a program of DIT. Where children go, they use their hands, they use their skills, they can do anything, including carpentry, including joinery, including weaving baskets, which skills they wouldn't have got if they didn't go to schools. And therefore, I don't want us to measure our schools' performance in terms of literacy and numeracy. No. By the way, in some other countries, you may find where the literacy levels are low, but the productivity of a student, a child at a certain level, is extremely high. So this is where we should go and where we are directing our education to. As long as the DIT program extends in schools, it had extended about 4,000 schools so far, as of recent. I don't have the most recent data about that, but I can tell you, at a certain level, these children are coming out with some skills that would help them develop. Some, at A level, you will realize they're doing computer, ICT, and they can use it for whatever purpose. And by the way, if you go to town even today, you'll find a number of children who are repairing TVs, who are repairing phones. They are not necessarily graduates. Where did they get those skills from? DIT sometimes. I saw this program His Excellency, the President, has put in place, where there is a lot of skilling, particularly for the non-formal learners in schools. And I can tell you the children who come out of that, young or old, when they go out, they do wonders. That's why you have seen now, by the way, there is a lot of transition from the usual woodworks we have been using for construction to now metalworks. It is not that we have a lot of metals in this country, no. It is because we have a number of skilled or semi-skilled, if you want, who are able to use the little electricity that is spreading across the country to make these productions. And they are not going to learn it from the university. Bronze welding, metalworks, and all of that. Me, I was lucky. I got some of those skills in my high school time. Those who went to Parish school know that we have, even today, a workshop there that was woodwork, that was metalwork. We used to have teachers who would teach us. I would draw a plan, comfortably, a plan of a house.
We used to call it technical drawing.
Absolutely.
TD.
Letkar Hanga used to help us. I'm glad he produced a son who is now a member of parliament for Wampara. He would help us. No, he's still alive. Mr. Kabalema, he lost a wife, unfortunately, and may God rest her soul in peace. Mr. Kabalema was one of those. Mr. Bitter, we used to call him Bitter. We had another person whose nickname I should not tell, but he was called Ishamon. Those people were helping us to learn. And I can tell you, any child who went through that, studying from senior 1 to senior 2, those skills, they did a great job.
This is where, let me stay with you.
Yes.
COVID presented a new challenge. Pregnant girls, pregnant teenagers.
Yes.
Incest, defilement, rape, all these were there. How has this adjusted to be able to cater for such? Especially looking at West Nile had about 20,000. Numbers were up there. How is it catering for that. Young men that have refused to go back to school because they've been lured in this. I can give this example. A young man I found got a business of Kavera and refused to go back to school. How is this being inclusive, especially for such an age bracket that is elusive from getting back to education?
Incidentally, most of these children who failed or refused deliberately to go back to schools, both girls and boys, were discouraged by a number of things, including, by the way, the cost of education in some cases. And that's why the president has been passionate about it. If the schools that are there are government aided, His Excellency the President have been saying, look, let the children go to these schools, but if you go there and you can't raise the money, and then you come out and find uvera in the river and you wash them and you're able to pack them and go and sell them to those people who are recycling, that's a business. And by the way, it also defeats our purpose. Why do we go to school? To be better. So if there is a shortcut of being better, it discourages some of these children from going to school. We need also to come out and begin explaining to them, motivate them to go to schools and learn. We need to get that done. Yes, there were a lot of pregnancies. Unfortunately, all these pregnancies were taking place at home. That's the most unfortunate thing. And that one demonstrates that the school is the safest place for your child. In all cases, whether it is discipline, whether it is performance, whether it is learning, the school is still the safest place for your child. And therefore, I'd like to encourage the parents to ensure their children are in school. And by the way, a number of people think that going to school and you are able to have a good handwriting. No. In many cases, let me tell you, as long as you are able to go to school, let me tell you, these children, me, I'm a teacher, I'm a professional one. These children, people tend to score the schools according to the performance they have got. And at the end of the day, when these children go into the world, I can tell you the parents are surprised. A child that is able to wake up in the morning and know that you are not supposed to urinate on the veranda, you are supposed to go to a certain gazetted place where you should go to do that. A child that wakes up and knows that you're supposed to wash your face, brush your teeth, and go and take your breakfast, if any. By the way, there are those who don't have it, unfortunately. We must also admit that. But know that when you are going out of class, you are supposed to ask for permission. That is a lot of learning. Yeah. And some people don't understand that that's learning. And they think learning is the highest level of education you score. No. It is not having a PhD like mine or baryomunsi. No. Honorable baryomunsi. No. Learning is the skill that you get that is going to help you to survive in this world. And this learning can be demonstrated by what these children do or cannot do after they have reached a certain level. And by the way, as I said, if we continue in this direction of having the skills, then things will go well. Skilling, I've told you, those children who drop out, His Excellency has put parks, industrial parks. You have noted those. 9 in the making, immediate, and the other 20-something that are ongoing. This is where these children who we are saying are dropping out will go and will get the skills and be able to survive and contribute the economy at the earliest.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, especially around the issue of discipline for our children. I think, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest injustices that we have suffered in Uganda is the discontinuation of mchaka. Those of us who are old enough will remember and I've seen the 3 of you wearing fatigues in Chankwanzi. I think that is something that might need to be revisited for our young people. You finish, I think, either S4 or S6, you should be able to go and do something that sort of aligns you properly. Again, something for our Minister of ICT to think about, because I think it falls under national guidance. So, and even as I come to you, Honorable baryomunsi, picking up on where Dr. Tweheyo has left off on the issue of education. We've seen what ICT has done for countries around the world. The richest companies in the world right now are ICT, big tech as we call them. They literally run the world as we know it. But if you go to countries like Singapore and what's happened there, I think even Cambodia and some of these other places, ICT has had such a very big role to play in the development of these countries. As a party, as the NRM, as a government, what are we doing to ensure that we are staying constantly aware of the role of ICT, and what are we doing to use it as part of our need to grow as a country?
Let me say that whatever programs the NRM government puts in place are based on a scientific calculation, because we have ideological pillars that form the foundation of NRM, and socioeconomic transformation is one of those, and providing education to the people is one of the key interventions we believe in. Because when you look at the demographic profile of this country, majority of Ugandans are children and young people, and therefore providing education for them is very key and is at the center of what NRM believes in. That is why over the years we have expanded access to university education. Like now we talk of up to 53 universities, both public and private. Our policy states that every sub-county should have a government secondary school. That's why we have invested in the construction of seed schools and grant aiding schools. Our policy stands that every parish should have a government primary school, and we have costed all these, and we have invested heavily in education. We have reviewed the curriculum. We are now focusing on teaching of science and technology. If you read today's papers, one of the leading headline was the thousands of textbooks, millions of textbooks government is going to buy and give all schools, both public and private, and so forth. So education is very key. And my role as a minister for ICT is to lead the digitization agenda, the digital transformation in this country. And definitely we have to integrate the teaching of science, IT, and other technology issues in the education system. That's why more often you see us build computer labs and provide computers in schools. It became much more obvious during the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown, when we had to close all institutions of learning and children were sent home. Now, for those who had access to internet and all these facilities, could continue with e-learning, online learning. Now, those who went to the countryside, began grazing goats and cows, could not continue learning. And the need to extend the broadband, the need to extend connectivity in the rest of the country became very, very imminent. So government is committed to ensuring that IT and technology becomes part and parcel of not only education, but the different spheres of life. Because if we are going to make a quantum leap in terms of transformation, then technology, ICT, must be at the center of whether it's education, it is health, agriculture, fighting poverty. Nowadays, when you look at countries which are moving fast in terms of development, ICT is at the center, and we are investing into this. For instance, I can tell you, we've been laying the national fiber, national backbone infrastructure to extend it to all corners of the country. And now we are starting a new program to extend to the remaining districts, sub-county headquarters, schools, health facilities, so that when you are in Kisoro, or in Karamoja, or in Moyo, or in Busia, you can do a degree without going to class, online. You can order for your items from China if you're a business person without flying there, and you can do all these transactions digitally. That's where we are moving, and therefore ICT remains very central. Recently we had a discussion in the cabinet on the issue of access to primary education and secondary education, because in 1997 NRM introduced UPE. The expectation was that all school-going children in Uganda would go for primary education. Then we introduced USE, and they would proceed to secondary education. And we have a loan scheme at the universities and tertiary institutions, they would proceed. But there have been cases of dropout rates which are quite alarming. Part of the reason being the fees which have been charged by the school administrations for various reasons. I can tell you that we have now taken a decision that beginning the other financial year, not this coming one, 2024-25, we are going to make primary education free and compulsory for all children of school-going age. We are going to make secondary education free and compulsory for all the children. And we are going to negotiate and engage with, say, faith-based institutions, like say these schools which are grant-aided. We shall have to agree that if you want the government to grant aid a church-founded school, then it's going to run as a government school where the children do not pay fees. If you insist on fees, government may withdraw and you run it as a private facility. So we have taken that decision as a government because we saw many young people were beginning primary one, but by the time you go to P7, many of them have dropped out. Then as they transition to secondary school, fewer are accessing education, and yet we know it is education which can cause significant transformation of our young people in this country.
Do we have the resources to be able to sustain this, Honorable baryomunsi?
Yes.
One of the problems we had with UPE, I'm sure you probably have interfaced with this, was that because of primary education becoming universal and free for everybody, the quality did drop. I think this is scientifically proven. I went to Nakasero Primary School, and if you look at what happened, before it was a UPE school and when it was, there was a clear drop in the quality of education. Doesn't that become a huge risk because it's quite a bit of resource required to be able to sustain this?
By the way, that's contestable. It's not necessarily true that UPE schools are doing badly, not necessarily. That we can have a debate, because sometimes people think doing well is getting a first grade. What is important is to pass, and UPE schools have been doing well. We have members of parliament who are products of UPE schools, and we have lecturers in universities. So, of course, as the numbers increase, issues of quality come in. But the first issue we want to address is that children should access education. Like when UPE started, the figures increased from 2.5 million Ugandans to 7.5. There was that huge shoot up of numbers. And therefore, how do we maintain these young people, these children in the school system from primary to secondary and upwards? So we want to achieve the issue of access, and then we deal with the issues of quality as we move along. We tasked the Ministry of Education to first carry out an assessment and calculate for us how much money are we talking about. And they have given us the figures in terms of if we are to make both primary and secondary education compulsory and free, we now know how much, and it's affordable, we can manage it. We also ask them to quantify how much money do we need to make sure that every sub-county has a government secondary school, and how many primary schools we must construct in the remaining parishes. All these figures we have. That's why we gave ourselves 1 year in between to reorganize the budget, and we shall be able to afford it.
We just wanted to be able to get that comfort, because it sounds like a really good idea.
Yes.
But always the challenge we have in Uganda usually is between the ideation and implementation. Sometimes it becomes a bit of a challenge.
I can even tell you, we need to increase the budget of education by 500 billion more to what we are giving them to get the free and compulsory, and then we need up to around 1.9 trillion to build the secondary schools in the remaining sub-counties and primary schools in the remaining parishes. So we have the figures, and that's why we have said, okay, maybe we might be hurrying to construct this in the next financial year, but we give ourselves time, we mobilize resources, then the other financial year we shall be able to start off, we shall be good to go.
Timothy,
so we can afford all this.
Timothy and I are going to start a construction company that specializes in building primary schools.
I hope you won't do show the work.
Mr. Bashaasha, let me come to you. And because one of the things we keep wondering, between the National Development 3 and also the manifesto there, what's the linkage between the two, NDP 3 and the NRM Manifesto? What's the linkage? What's the correlation there? If you can help us understand that.
Yeah, the NDP 3 gives the overall planning framework for the country. It also drives many of the deliverables from the Vision 2040, because the Vision 2040 was looking at 30 years for Uganda to have moved from peasantry to modern society, and this was going to be delivered in like 6 development plans of 5 years, 6 development plans. And I think now we are in the 3rd, and we probably be going to the 4th. Now the manifesto, much as it comes out as a party proposition on how we want to move the country, the beauty of it is that most of these deliverables are equally aligned within the National Development Plan. So there is no contradiction. Most of the deliverables in the manifesto are well aligned within the National Development Plan, I think, which also makes it very easy for the government plan and budget better. So that is what I can call the linkage that there is. So there is no contradiction where you can say the manifesto is at that level derived from the party wishes and how it feels it is going to take the country forward. But already there is this development plan which also shoots within the Vision 2040, which is the bigger framework on what we should be able to realize within the targets that were set for these 30 years since the first Vision 2040 was conceived.
Yeah. So basically, to supplement what he's saying is that the NDP 3 or even the previous ones, they speak to the manifesto. So the two documents speak to each other. And at the sector level, at the ministry level, we extract now annual plans from the NDP, the National Development Plan, which is a 5-year. And once we draw plans, but we also pull from the manifesto. So there is no contradiction. The two documents move along together and they speak to each other.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of continuity of voting in NRM, so there is no disruption.
Actually, one of the biggest issues which some people don't understand, especially when it comes to Parliament, especially members of Parliament, the budget of the country is always aligned to the manifesto of the leading party. And this is sometimes becomes a big challenge when some members or some leaders want to make their own manifestos contrary to what the overall manifesto and plan that we have for the country. And this now leads to issues like you have been seeing. The country is planning and saying we are going to build a health center in sub-county X. The MP says, I'm going to roof it. Then how do you turn yourself into a country itself? We say we're going to build a school in a sub-county or in a parish, and you, the MP, say, I'm going to roof it. And where do you get the iron sheets from? From the very same government that should have put it. So those are some of the challenges really that we get. And we need to educate everybody. Not only the people we think are not educated or civilized. Incidentally, the people you people imagine that are not civilized, these people in the village, in the countryside, these people in the suburbs in the country are very civilized, are very much aware.
Is it possible, though, Dr. Tweheyo, that sometimes the reason an MP will say, I'm going to roof the health center is because the government is maybe taking its time and he or she wants to actually make sure that this service delivery that you're supposed to deliver gets there a little bit quicker?
Partly yes, partly no. Because this MP is one of those who appropriate a budget. He knows the pockets and the stretch of the government. So if he says, I'm going to do it because I want to shine in my constituency, then it becomes problematic. And possibly the shining may end up into a blackout sometime, and it leads to trouble.
Yeah.
So we need, His Excellency the President has been passionate about this. He has been explaining that, yes, align yourselves to the manifesto, to the NDP. Go and educate the people. Show them, for example, if the MP went to the district and showed this is how much money has been given to the district, this is what it's supposed to do. Can we work together to ensure that the money that has been put for the roads goes for the roads? Can we ensure that the money has been put for this school, which is this much, and the program for the school includes furniture, includes laboratory equipment, includes, but he just goes in, or she just goes in and forgets that by mobilizing the community to understand this, he is actually taking the lead and will be much more supported than the other one who says, me, I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
An individual will always find challenges doing it himself or herself than working together with the government and then putting together the population and working together as a team.
I wanted to add something and say that building on what Comrade Tweheyo has said, is that this is also caused by what I would call gaps, or people failing to understand the relevance of a manifesto like in a multi-party dispensation. Because, you know, sometimes even when we make these commitments and deliverables, even some of our citizens don't read and understand that at one point there is this commitment. So when there are those gaps, now, for political purposes and winning, you know, sometimes politics tend to take the psychological path of dealing with issues. They will come and say, you know, I'm even the one who has brought this seed school. But if the citizens are very much aware that these seed schools, they are the reasons why we supported our old man with a hat, because he says he's going to have them made, constructed within each sub-county. So he would have no way why he should be running there. Yeah. And one of the, what we have done as a manifesto unit was also to rise to this occasion of trying to inform Ugandans regularly what is it that we were supposed to do, both at technical and political level and local government level, so that citizens need to know that, yes, we had this commitment being made, how far have we gone on it? Or what are the reasons why we have not been able to deliver on it? And what is the way forward in as far as that commitment is concerned? So that leaders are able to communicate that the manifesto, that the contract we had with the citizens was raising these deliverables. And this is how far we have gone. When I went to Parliament, my role was this. Either appropriation, we appropriated money, and like he says, I'm around now for oversight. I want to see, is this seed school in this constituency existing? Yeah. Is this health center 3 in this sub-county well done? So that you are now shooting into the reasons why this contract is in existence.
Right. As we begin to get parting shots, we'll start with you, Dr. baryomunsi. Let's tackle just one last thing very briefly, and this is the issue of health, one of the most fundamental basic needs for anybody, and where this fits into the manifesto at the moment. Do we have any, and this is one of the big questions that's been coming through online, what you are doing, what the government is doing about health in this country. We've been hearing about a national health insurance scheme. Is there any traction happening in that regards? Where are we on that as we get your parting shots as well?
Well, health is one of the key areas that we take as a priority as government, and it's one of the areas which attracts a big part of the budget. If you look at the top 3 or 4 or 5 areas where we spend resources, and we continue to invest in health and health care. And indeed, when you look at some of the outcome and impact indicators, there has been a lot of progress. We continue to invest in prevention and control of diseases. We invest in infrastructure, construction of health facilities, renovation of facilities like Marago Hospital. I don't know when you last went to Marago. We have done heavy investment in terms of renovation and revamping, not only the building, but also the equipment, diagnostic and curative, as well as painting the human resource. I'm sure you know that we recently enhanced the pay of health workers, including scientists, including health workers and doctors. We took a decision recently as a government that going forward, we are going to be recruiting all doctors who graduate from these universities, deploy them down to Health Center 3, the sub-county level health facility. So we continue to prioritize health care because all of us need to improve the quality of health care in this country. And of course, you know the lessons we draw from fighting COVID-19. I think Uganda was one of the exemplary countries that tackled decisively and successfully the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the Ebola outbreak which we had in the country. So we are doing fairly well in terms of addressing healthcare, but we must put more money in this area to ensure that we have high quality services.
Yeah, I want to add that health, like the Honorable Minister has said, is an area where government has invested very heavily. The strategy, the health strategy for the country has been preventive strategy, where we are looking at the primary health care and other related aspects. However, the infrastructure, which largely deals with curative, tends to, deal with the issue of access, especially distance of the citizens, how accessible are the health facilities to them. And the president had also talked about other areas like nutrition and even physical exercises to improve on our health living. Like in any other investment that one makes, sometimes the plan is this, but it also builds into demand of the other. I'll give an example that, when we put up these infrastructures of, say, health center 3s at each sub-county, it also means we have to create more staff to serve in them. That will also mean that we have to look for a budget and create more accommodation for this staff to serve the people at those health facilities. But this is a process. This is a process. Everything has a beginning, and I believe that the ministries concerned are mindful of this, and we can see that the hardware is slowly being achieved. Maybe now they need to move into the issues of software on how they can make sure that what we have invested as a first line of investment has an impactful meaning on the citizens.
Right.
I thought I would throw this in.
And I guess just one last question for you, Dr.
I can tell
Tweheyo.
you the facts before you even come to that.
Yeah.
This country, this government has put in place oxygen plants in all the 17 referrals in this country. 109 facilities have been upgraded from Health Center 2 to Health Center 3s. The UG Gift program, if you can remember those, have gone through to reconstruct about 43 new health centers. So we are not doing so badly. The biggest challenge that we're having now, by the way, is the lifestyle diseases, diabetes, mention all those. That is where the biggest challenge is now, especially in urban areas. However, we still have some issues, particularly with the distribution of drugs. Dr. Namara's unit in the State House Monitoring Unit is doing its best, but we still have challenges. Of course, as you talked about, corruption and those other issues, we still must fight those. However, building the hospitals, building health centers, in my view, is not the most crucial health issue. The most crucial health issue is to prevent. Actually, I would be extremely happy if I found all these health centers, all these hospitals empty. That is what is happening in most civilized countries, because they prevent. They make sure that people are so healthy to the extent that they cannot even go to hospital, and hospitals are empty. And that is what we should be working towards, to ensure that our children, for example, like the government did immunization of all these ailments that are immunizable diseases, those ones have been solved No wonder there is clear accountability of that by the shoot in terms of population growth. The reduction in mortality rates, all those are happening. And therefore, we are working towards now, as the minister said, preventive modes of making sure that our people are not sick. Have you got the mosquito nets? Are you using it anyway? Because it is one thing. By the way, we have a big challenge, you people. The biggest challenge is not the prevention of some of these ailments, no. Because some of the mechanisms are put in place. I can tell you, you'll go to the villages, you'll find somebody having a brand new net, using it to cover a tomato plant, because the chicken may go and peck on it. So we need to educate our people, for sure.
Right.
And I think we should even include it as a component in our learning of the children, like we used to have the highway code. We should have that, so that any child knows that health is not necessarily solved by going to hospital. It is solved by making sure that you feed well, that you avoid a number of issues, that you avoid that, and that way you will be solving the problem of health. And that primary health care is one of the areas that NRM is putting attention to, besides all these other developments that are coming up.
No, I'm just hearing a bigger case for Dr. Baryomunsi's budget to be increased, because that comes back down to information dissemination and mindset change. So we need to have a chat about how to increase his budget in the coming financial year.
He has already talked
now
about
you are talking.
He has already talked about education, and I hope ICT gets there. But gentlemen, thank you very much for coming through. We appreciate especially the enlightening and also the accountability you are allowing the country to hold you in high regard, especially as we go forward. But from Ben and I, to whom much is given, much is expected, and a lot has been given to us as a country, and we should be asking ourselves, what more can we do for our country? Not what can our country do for us.
The reason why we should stay longer.
And sleep in mosquito nets.
So in the coming 2 weeks, we are going to be giving accountability ministry by ministry, and we want the public to give us feedback.
We're looking forward
how
to
we
that.
have performed in the last 2 years.
Looking forward to that.
We expect them here on Spotlight to give us
Actually,
that.
our presence tonight here was about Okoroza. Like test
a test of what's to come.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to call it a night here at Spotlight, and we're Spotlight UG, and we appreciate everyone. Ben, thank you so much. The tech team behind there, thank you for making it possible. Gentlemen, we appreciate, and I hope to see you again. From us to you, good night, and God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
8th, 2023 at 10 p.m. on UBC TV. Join the conversation online via #SpotlightUG.
Talk with freedom. Get MTN Freedom voice bundles that don't expire. Dial *100*2